if this pace keeps going, how Michkov's playing right now, in a couple weeks when the season's officially over on the 17th, we might be sitting here saying, if it wasn't for Lane Hutson having a rookie year, Michkov would be taking over home the Calder Trophy. Today is April 2nd, 2025. Welcome to the Checking From Behind podcast. I'm your host, Zach, as always, joined by Preston. Let's hop right into our quick hitters because Ryan Leonard's a dog. That dude made his debut last night as of this recording against the Boston Bruins. He had 14 minutes time on ice. Unfortunately, did not record his first NHL point. And then Alexander Ovechkin scored a goal in the same exact game. He's now 4 goals away. The Washington Capitals are a wagon. They're competing for the President's Trophy. They just get Ryan Leonard in time for the playoffs. I'm not expecting him to have a huge role in the playoffs. He's probably going to be playing between 12 to 14 minutes time on ice. Who knows? Maybe Washington decides to make a deep run. They get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and Ryan Leonard starts averaging 16 minutes time on ice. But again, he'll still be a rookie next season because he's not going to get to the 27-game threshold, which is just regular season, by the way. That does not include playoffs. So, is it 27 games or 25?
Something around
It's something around there. Ryan Leonard, he's a very, very young rookie coming out of college. And what impressed me the most is just his confidence with the puck and his physicality. He ended up getting a hit, open ice, one that was going around social media. And, of course, I don't like the people flaming him for after he ended up giving the hit to the Boston Bruin player. He went right to the bench, but Ovi seemed to love it. He was at the end of his shift, gave one last effort, got to the bench. Nothing came of it. And, yeah, it wasn't a very exciting debut for Ryan Leonard, but it's nice to see him in a Washington Capitals sweater.
Yeah, and I think to add to that just a little bit, I think kind of right now to stay in the lineup, as a rookie, you kind of have to have that two-way physical game, especially going to the playoffs. Like if you want to make your mark on the lineup right now, I think it's important to establish that physical play right away, and then give your coach a reason to put you out there.
Not only that, but also playing with a guy like Alexander Ovechkin, who, by the way, he is 300 hits or so away from being the NHL all-time hit leader. You're going out there, being in the same lineup as him, a guy who can throw the hit, and you want to make a mark on OV too. Like with the coach and with Tom Wilson and Carlson and all these vets, you want those vets to be look at you and be like, you know what, this kid can play. Whether if he's not producing on the score sheet, he can contribute on the ice in other ways than not. And I think that's also a confidence booster too. And I mean, I guess it helps you're going to one of the best teams in the league right away, which of course is a confidence booster going into the playoffs. A much different situation than, let's say, a guy like Matthew Wood, who is going to make his debut on the Nashville Predators team that's bottom of the league. So, yeah, I think that's really all that's to it. I'm not expecting him to do a whole lot in the playoffs, but I think he can make an impact on the Capitals in the playoffs, whether it's a score sheet or whether it's throwing a hit, making plays, all of that.
Well, even if he doesn't play a ton in the playoffs, which honestly he might not be playing in round one unless he has they might just be playing him just to see how he is, and because playoffs are a different beast.
Oh yeah,
just to have a young player you can rely on to throw in the lineup in case of injuries is extra depth too added at the end of the year, which is nice.
That's a good point you brought up. Yeah. If we do see him in the lineup in the playoffs, will most likely be due to injury, but who knows? Maybe he impresses Carberry so much over these final 8-10 games of the season for the Capitals that he has no choice to throw him in. But again, that's a couple weeks on the road. We'll see what happens when we get there. All right, the main event of this episode, the Calder race. The Calder race turned from a 2-man race. It was originally a 4-man race. It turned to a 2-man race. And now, in our humble opinion, it is a 3-man race, we'd say.
Yeah, honestly, though, I see it kind of as more of a one-man race. I think it's honestly Lane Hutson's to lose. But, I mean, I still think there's an outside chance that Celebrini or Michkov could end up stealing it from him. I'd be kind of shocked at this point with the way that Lane Hutson, especially of late, has been playing. Montreal's been incredible lately, honestly. 2 big wins back to they just tied it with less than 10 seconds left in the game yesterday against Florida, and then they end up winning in overtime. a huge win for them in their playoff push. They still firmly control their own destiny when it comes to the playoffs. So, and Lane Hutson's been a really big part of that.
I made an Instagram post about Lane Hutson, and I remember last night I was telling you about how I think Celebrini has a really good shot to get um, Calder, and I do think that he still has a solid shot to get the Calder. But when I was doing research, going over Lane Hutson's like accolades, I guess stats this season, this is the list that I came up with. He leads all rookies in assists with 57 and .62, which we already knew. He's seventh at this moment. He's seventh all time in assists by a rookie defenseman. He has 2-point streaks of 7 straight games. He's seventh in the NHL, in the entire NHL, in assists. He's fourth in the NHL in points by a defenseman, and he also ranks in the 97th percentile in offense in the entire NHL, which is per Evolving Hockey. And to top it all off, he's only a -6 on a team that frankly does not have great goaltending. I believe they're at a -25 goal differential, and he's only a -6 as their top defenseman, which is pretty impressive. And the plus minus, again, it's a skewed stat like we preach on this pod every single time we bring up plus minus, but he's also doing a lot of this scoring, even strength too. This isn't just power play. This isn't just extra man time. This is even strength numbers. And I think that's the huge part in why Hutson and the Canadiens are going to most likely end up in the playoffs right now. And if you go by points percentage, I know they have one game in hand. The Blue Jackets have one game in hand on the Canadiens, who are 2 points behind them. But they have a higher points percentage than Columbus at the moment. So the playoffs started today. Montreal's in. And Hudson's a huge part of that.
They would be a super fun team to watch in the playoffs. Just the energy they have at their home games right now. I mean, the Montreal fans are one of the best in the league, in my opinion. They're so passionate, and that building's erupting for regular season hockey, like on a Saturday afternoon. I can't imagine what they'd be, because they weren't supposed to make the playoffs this year.
They were supposed
not at all.
I genuinely thought they were going to be between 82 to 84 points range, which I thought was realistic for this Canadian team, which I thought was going to get better, especially with the addition of Lane Hutson. I didn't think that Lane Hutson was going to have the ridiculous season that he's having now as a rookie defenseman. B, I didn't think the Canadians right now would be fighting for a playoff spot. Now, granted, they're only 5 points over 500 in a very mid-Eastern conference for that last spot. Ottawa, you're not mid. I think Ottawa reached that 90-point mark, probably closer to 92. But, man, right now, that wild card 2 spot, that team's going to have what? On pace for 85, 86 points? And I remember I brought up early in the season that looking at the wild card 2, maybe it'd be at 82 points. And sure, that's too low still. But you look at it, though, not far-fetched. I think it's, of course, going to be higher than 82 points, especially if the Canadians can go on a little bit of a streak. They've won 2 straight games. They're 4-3-3 in their last 10. And the Canadians can score. And it's between them, the Blue Jackets, and the Rangers. And, again, Lane Hutson right now, he's minus 2,000 on sportsbook bets to end up winning the Calder, which speaks volume to who Vegas thinks is going to end up winning the Calder. And I don't know the odds for Celebrini and Michkov, but I'm assuming they're probably around the same plus range. I don't think Michkov and Celebrini, I don't think one is ahead of the other in terms of the Calder race. I think it's Lane Hutson on one level, who should clearly be the favorite. Then I have Celebrini and Michkov as like a 2A and 2B situation.
I mean, Michkov's also been playing ridiculously lately as well. So like he's been so good since they fired John Tortorella. He's been playing on another level. He's honestly starting to look like a superstar already. And I think he will end up being a superstar in my opinion. So I mean, I honestly, I'd be kind of surprised if Celebrini ends up winning it. To be completely honest with you, and that's not saying anything about his game. He's had a terrific rookie season. I think he's lived up to the billing of, being the number 1 pick in his draft. On a really bad Sharks team, he's been pretty good.
I want to disagree, but I feel like I can't, if that makes sense, because I'm a huge fan of Celebrini's, and the point that I want to make is he's close to a point per game as a rookie, and I'm looking at it as you can't. I hate playing what if games. I say that 6 million times. What if he doesn't get injured his second
Mm-hmm.
game of the season? He's looking at 65 points, 62 to 65 points. But it happened though. You can't take it back. But he's still at 53 points in 58 to 59 games. Michkov, ever since Torres got fired, like you said, he's at close to 2 points per game. He in his last 6 to 7 games, he has 11 points. It's ridiculous. And I think his last 2 games he has 6. So
Yeah, I mean, I would highlight for Michkov and especially Celebrini as well. They're doing this on really bad teams. I mean, the Sharks are the worst team in the league, bar. I mean, the only team in that conversation is the Blackhawks because they're both. It's amazing when you look at the standings and see like how much worse those two teams are than all the other teams in the league. Like, there's 11-point difference between third last and second last, which is insane.
you have San Jose with 50, Chicago with 51, and then Nashville with 62.
Yeah, they are in a league of their own of how.
Usually you have like a here and there, you have one team that's kind of around like that 50 to 55 point range and everybody else is above. But you have 2 teams that are right there for consecutive years. It's not something I feel bad for Bedard down there in Chicago and
Yeah, no, I watched a pretty good YouTube video the other day, kind of breaking down about like why Connor Bedard's scoring is down. It was a really good breakdown of like it was a play where they were playing the Jets. It was a close game, and Bedard did a really good job cutting down the middle. He drew 3 defensemen into it, and they had it was an empty net. They were down by a goal late in the game against the Jets. So Bedard rushes the ice, and like all like the forward and the 2 defensemen all pull towards Bedard like he wants him to, and he passes it to Tyler Bertuzzi, who's wide open with speed coming in for a good scoring chance, and he fucking dumped it in.
that explains it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a perfect example of why Bedard has been like he's been. If you look at his numbers, like he's not a bad. Like his analytics. He's had his good season. I mean, he's looking like every bit you want him to be. And people look at points as such a defining stat, and yeah, you could say a lot, but that Chicago team is so bad that Bedard can literally pass him a puck to an empty net, and he'll be yelled at if his teammate doesn't score.
And pivoting over to Celebrini, he is in a better situation than Connor Bedard when he came in his rookie year last year.
I think he has more help around him, definitely forward. I think San Jose's more issues their defense and their goaltending than their forwards.
And they're building that defense through prospects and that goaltending through acquiring Askarov. They already have Sam Dickinson on the blue line, and if they end up getting a top 2 pick in the draft, they're probably gonna end up going defenseman. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank right now. Yes, Schaefer, thank you. Matthew Schaefer.
If they get the first overall pick, they're probably picking him. They don't need another center.
I think if they get top 2, if they get the second overall pick, they're getting him too, because I think Chicago goes Misa or Higgins, but I agree, yeah. It's a conversation
if Nashville ends up getting him, they're taking a center as well. So Schaefer, I think San Jose is the last place is guaranteed a top 3 pick, or is it top 4? I don't know what the new rules.
I'm going to check that real quick.
I think they're guaranteed a top 4 pick. So unless, I think only the top 3 spots are lottery. So so they can fall to 4, I believe.
Yeah, they can.
So like, unless all the teams above them are like really defenseman hungry, they're probably going to go center or forward, and I think San Jose is probably going to end up with Schaefer.
San Jose will end up with Schaefer, which not only do you have Dickinson back there, but then let's say they do get a Matthew Schaefer. Now you just have to build around those guys, and you also have Askarov, which is one of the best goalie prospects. And we saw some time this season due to some injuries, and he was a little bit shaky. But again, goaltenders take years to develop. I wouldn't worry about that. So, yeah, I think in Celebrini's case, I want to make an argument for why I think he has a better chance than Michkov, but if this pace keeps going how Michkov's playing right now, I think in a couple weeks when the season's officially over on the 17th, we might be sitting here saying if it wasn't for Lane Hutson having a rookie year, Michkov would be taking home the Calder Trophy, which I'm completely fine with too, because we're blessed right now that we actually have a semi-competitive Calder race. This isn't like a one-man show where it's Lane Hutson and everybody else is average or below average. We at least
Hmm.
have a couple guys in the conversation. Well, 4 guys. If you want to include Dustin Wolf, you can, but I think he's fallen out of it by now. But
I agree.
just wanted to mention him because give him his flowers because he's been phenomenal this season for Calgary. One of the reasons why Calgary was in a playoff spot for so long for most of the year. And then of course St. Louis has now won 10 straight games for those of you guys who live under a rock and has really taken over that second wild card spot. So shout out to our boy Dustin Wolf. Yeah, I think we are blessed to see a semi-competitive race here, and I'd be shocked if anybody takes home besides Hutson, especially with him only being a few assists away. I think he's 3 assists away from tying, and then 4 assists. Oh no, that can't be right. I'm gonna look that stat up real quick to see how far away he is from the NHL rookie assists all-time record.
Well, I think the thing that kind of makes Hudson a no-brainer is that he's a defenseman. I think that changes things a little bit, because it's like I've said this before. I think it's easier for a forward to jump in and kind of be somewhat productive right away on the get-go, but for a defenseman, I think it's a much harder because you have a lot more responsibility. But Hudson plays loose, he plays free, and he's a really good playmaker. He's a really good play-driving defenseman, and Montreal might be in good shape for a long time.
I did have that stat correct. Just wanted to fact check and make sure I didn't have anything wrong. He's 3 assists away from tying the assist record of most by a rookie defenseman, and then he's 4 away from holding the top spot all time in NHL history. He's
I
played
think he'll do
74.
it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He has 6 assists in the last 2 games. It's ridiculous.
I mean, I think he has to do it if Canadians make the playoffs. Like if they don't make the playoffs unless he's playing really well.
I mean, it feels like that for most of the season. If he's not going, and if Caulfield's not going, I mean,
Nick Suzuki's been awesome too.
Suzuki's been great. Didn't he have like a game tying goal last night, and then he ended up
And then
winning
he
in
scored the
overtime?
game winner.
Yeah, I don't know if you
No,
mentioned that.
Nick Suzuki's been really good. He has 7. He's the leading point getter on the Canadians, 79 points this year. And Cole Caulfield, those 3, and Slavkovsky's still developing, but they've all had really good young players. Laine's been really good too in the short amount of. He's only played about half the season, but he's had a good half of a season for them. I think he'll just continue to get better in their system. They got a lot of really good prospects coming up the pipeline. Montreal might be this was supposed to be a year where we suck. It's not that big of a deal, but they've exceeded expectations. Honestly, I think it's gonna suck if they don't make the playoffs. I think I want them to make the playoffs.
Not only do I want them to make the playoffs, but also as a team in general, I don't think the Canadians can afford to sit there and barely miss the playoffs by a point or due to a tiebreaker, and now you have to pick 15th overall. If you're the
Mm-hmm.
Canadians, you either want to be really bad and get a top 3 to 5 pick, or you want to make the playoffs. And whether they squeak it or not doesn't matter. This team's offense is fun to watch. I will gladly watch them against Washington. And whether they get smacked or not, I think the Canadians can put up a decent fight against a potent Washington team that it feels like it's almost too good to be true with Washington because
Yeah.
on paper you're like, how is this team so good? But then when you watch them, you're like, this is why this team's good. And I think the Canadians, if they can, I'm not saying they're going to upset Washington, but again, it's more of I still don't know how I feel about Washington going into the playoffs. I want to see them for the first few games. And watching the Canadians, the few Canadians games that I've watched, because frankly, I haven't watched a ton of Canadians games, if I'm being honest with you. They're fast. It's fun to watch. It's not this slow. We're going to have a 0-goal differential and then win games 2-1 or 3-2, and we're gonna have 20 shots a game. This team will give you 25, 30 shots per game, give you 3.5, 4 goals a game, and I mean, this team's good. I think they can be fun.
I don't know if I say they're good. I think they're capitalizing on a pretty weak bottom eastern half of the Eastern Conference. Because I think in any other playoff year, to have last year, 2 wildcard teams, 98 and 91 points.
Mm-hmm.
Ottawa might get to 90 points. They haven't been playing amazing, but Montreal or what I think this wild card 2 is going to top out already in maybe 87, 88 points.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bit of a down year, at least for the Bard to get in the playoffs. And like with it have this many teams, and Montreal has a negative 25 goal differential. Their goaltending is not very good, and their defense isn't very good at playing defense. They could score a lot of goals, which is why they're in this place where they are. But in a playoff series, I kind of think they get their butts beat. To be honest, if they play a team that can kind of lock them down defensively, because they're not very good defensively. Like unless Sam Montembeault or one of their older goalies like plays otherworldly. I
Jake
mean, I have a
Dobbs.
huh?
Jake Dobbs. Love that kid. Sorry, had to throw out his name. Had to throw out his name.
Yeah, but I mean, I think they're doing a really good job of just capitalizing on the moment. And like I said, they're playing with house money right now, so we might as well do whatever you can to get in the playoffs.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I was overplaying them by calling them good. They're probably more
I mean,
closer
they're
to average.
definitely not.
What?
They're not bad.
Yeah, of course, but also like capitalizing on a very weak Eastern Conference that they can squeak into the playoffs at 85, 86 points. And I was going through the last 10 years. This would be the lowest wild card 2 team to get in, first off, in the last 10 years, but also by like 5 or 6 points. The wild
Hmm.
card 2 team, like we've had 91 points the last couple of years. I think the last 2 to 3 years has been 91, 92 points. And after that, it was like 97, 98, 100, 95, 96. So again, in most other cases, the Canadians are probably around 10th to 11th in the Eastern Conference with this, maybe probably closer to 10th. But again, I mean, you have a lot of teams like the Blue Jackets, the Rangers, Red Wings, Islanders that have all been really mid and bad, frankly. So
Yeah,
props
it's
to the
definitely been
Canadians.
a best of the worst. I don't mean that disrespectfully.
No, we would much rather see the Canadians in there than the Rangers. And
Yeah, I
honestly,
want to see a fun team in the
if it's,
playoffs.
I'm hoping for the Blue Jackets and the Canadians. Either or works. That's all that matters. Blue Jackets, feel good story. Canadians, fun, fast pace. As long as Washington doesn't lock them down, but we'll see. Let's hop over into the playoffs. And so what we're gonna do is for Cup contenders, we're gonna be listing off one Achilles heel that will stop them from getting to the Cup finals. But because there's like 7 to 8 teams in the NHL that we list off as teams that can go out and win the Cup, we simplified it. We're just doing the top team in each division right now. So that is the Winnipeg Jets, the Maple Leafs, Vegas Golden Knights, and the Washington Capitals. So again, we left out a team like Dallas, Colorado, Florida. We're sorry, guys. Didn't want to make this segment about 2 hours long because we go on a shit ton talking about these teams. All right, let's hop into this. We'll start off in the Atlantic Division with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I think this is pretty self-explanatory. Their Achilles heel is just themselves. Get over the hump. Get the monkey off the back. I know they ended up winning a playoff run against Tampa in 2022, but besides that, though, they have nothing to show for it in the Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner era and the rest of their core.
Oh, Ovi just scored.
He's 3 goals away, baby! Let's
Yeah.
go. That's your boy. Anyways. Yeah, so the Maple Leafs, if they can get first in the Atlantic Division, they're getting out of the first round for sure. Although it's the Maple Leafs, so you never know. If they end up, because that top of the Atlantic Division is so tight between them, Tampa, and Florida. They're a point up right now as of this recording on the Lightning and 2 points up on the Florida Panthers. Toronto, let's say they fall to the second spot. Let's say Tampa gets that first spot. Now Toronto has to play the defending Cup champs in round 1. Like, that's worst case scenario if you're Toronto. That's not what you want. Even if you get past them somehow in round 1, you put 99% of your energy into winning that round. You go into the semifinals in the East to play a Tampa Bay. I mean, you're beat up already. So going in and playing a team like an Ottawa Senators, which will be a tough out in the playoffs, and having Florida and Tampa battle it out in round 1, best case scenario if you're Toronto.
I'm honestly of this perspective. If I'm the Maple Leafs, if I really don't. If I'm the Maple Leafs, I really don't give a fuck who I play in the first round.
Okay.
And honestly, I would welcome playing the Panthers because they're the defending champs. And I think if you beat them, then what you have in that locker room is real.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I get it from that perspective because The Maple Leafs aren't sitting here night in and night out and be like, man, if we somehow drop to the second seed or this and that, now we have to play Florida like we're fucked. No, they're not saying that. They'll face anybody, anywhere, anytime. Especially when you have an 80 assist guy in Marner, a 60 goal guy in Matthews, a 70-point guy in Tavares, and Nylander a 100-point guy. So, and their goaltending is great. Solar's putting up a 918 to 920 save percentage. Woll has been their starter for most of the year, putting up about league average save percentage at about 905-ish or so last time I checked earlier today. So, yeah, the Maple Leafs, it's definitely themselves, and they just can't get into penalty trouble. They can't shoot themselves in the foot. Just keep playing how you did in a regular season. Don't worry about anything mentally, and they'll be fine. Going over to the Metropolitan Division, the Washington Capitals, and their Achilles heel that we have is superstar talent with the question mark next to it because, of course, we all know Ovechkin's on a ridiculous goal per game pace. He's averaging, 0.69 goals per game after the goal tonight. And the biggest question, does he have one more great playoff run left in the tank before he calls it a career?
I think if he breaks the record this year, I think he's going to go into the playoffs pumped.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because at that point, I'm assuming like he's not going to say it, but he knows how close he is to breaking that record, and he wants to break it really, really bad, and that's why he's been trying so hard, to score like this most of this season. Is when you're within reach of that something. I mean, I will say it was kind of hard for us to come up with a good one for the Capitals. So if you look at their stats, they are one of the better teams in the league. It's just I've said this all year. There's just something about that team to me that just doesn't feel right to me. I don't know if you feel this way too, Zach, but I don't know. I just never. I guess I could say I never really believed in them this year. I feel like they've gotten lucky and like I think they're very well coached. I will give them that. I think Spencer Carberry is one of the best coaches in the league, and I think he's done a really good job, especially with all the new faces in the locker room this year, of getting the most out of their players. Like Jacob Chikrin is a good example where they just signed him into a super long extension, paying him like top pair defenseman money. He's looked like a top pair defenseman this year. Same thing with Pierre-Luc Dubois. My question is like, is this legit? I still have a tough time believing it. I still can't tell if this is legit or if this is just everything that could possibly go right.
I'm kind of in the same boat with you, but also I feel like I believe in them a little bit more than you because
I mean, I've been waiting all year for them to go down, and they haven't, so I'll give them that. But I don't know how they should at least make it to the second round.
the thing with Washington is they have Dylan Strome, who has 72 points in 74 games, and then Protas, by the way, what a freaking steal of an extension it was that they signed him to. He has 66 and 74
Do you think
games.
he's pissed that he signed that extension?
I mean, yes and no. When you're a guy of Protas' caliber back when he signed it, you're like, I'm getting $3.5 million. We're buzzing now. I mean, he could be looking at $6 million, $7 million if they really wanted to bring. Even if it was just a 3-year deal, you're getting twice the amount of money. And then, of course, Ovi with 40 goals. But this team has 5 players with 60-plus points. They've had fantastic goaltending from Logan Thompson. He, in 42 games played, has a 2.43 goals against and 9.12 save percentage. Now, Lindgren, he's been kind of just below league average at an 8.99 save percentage. So it looks like the questions from earlier in the season from which goaltenders should they kind of ride with, Thompson or Lindgren, now they're going to end up going with Thompson, who, in my opinion, is the better goaltender. And it's nice to have it's a luxury, actually, to have Lindgren as your backup. If Thompson, unfortunately, goes down from here until sometime in the playoffs, not going with that he doesn't, then you can fall back on Lindgren, who is not a bad backup option. But special teams, Washington currently is 15th in the NHL in power play percentage at 22.1%. And then penalty kill percentage, they're actually in the top 10 as 7th in the entire NHL at an 81.9% clip. So special teams has been a huge factor in this team. They've also gotten very timely scoring from a bunch of guys, and they have guys that are willing just to play. They're willing to play winning hockey, and sometimes teams don't need a 100-point score. They don't need a 920 save percentage goaltender or a Norris caliber defenseman, which Carlson and Chychrun have been playing great hockey. They're not Norris caliber IMO, but they just play well as a unit and as a team, and that's where it all falls back to coaching. Like you said, Spencer Carberry right now is my favorite to win the Jack Adams Award, and personally, I don't know if it'll be that close. Maybe you can throw Scott Arniel in there from Winnipeg, who is doing
I
a
think he's
phenomenal
gonna
job.
win it. I think whoever wins the President's Trophy is gonna win Coach of
I,
the Year.
you know what? I agree. I want again. I want to
Because these
agree,
both these teams are shocks to me to win the President's
but
Trophy. Unless Dallas ends up stealing it, I feel like it's gonna be one of those two.
But also, I do think that if you look at the roster, I think that Winnipeg has the better players. But you can also go back on that. It's like, well, okay, but Winnipeg, they won the President's Trophy, but also they have Connor Hellebuck, they have Mark Scheifele, they have Kyle Connor. But also, like, this Washington team's probably not going to have a guy over a point per game, and Logan Thompson's probably going to finish with a 915 save percentage at best. I give it to Carberry right now. But again, you can't go wrong with either one. I don't hate that you think that whoever's going to win the President's Trophy gets it, because right now, Washington at 105 points, Winnipeg at 106 points. And then you mentioned Dallas, they're 4 points back of Winnipeg at 102 points with the game in hand. So,
No, I agree with this. Spencer Carberry probably should be the favorite. I think what he's done with the Capitals this year is a complete shock to everybody, and the fact that we've kind of been waiting for them to fall back down to earth and they haven't says a lot about him.
oh, yeah, 100%. Totally agree with you. Moving on to the Central Division, the Winnipeg Jets, which we just touched on briefly. Their biggest Achilles heel is Connor Hellebuck and that defense. We all know what happened the last two seasons that the Jets were in the playoffs. Connor Hellebuck and the defense shit the bed. And a lot of the blame goes on Connor Hellebuck because he hasn't been good, frankly, since that Western Conference Finals run. And I believe it was, 2018 or 19, whenever that was. But also the defense hasn't helped him out. I watched most of the series, and I'm sure you did too, Preston, of their first round matchup against Colorado from game 1 until game 6 or game 5, whatever it was. That defense was not helping Hellebuck out at all.
No.
They were
Yeah.
giving McKinnon and McCarr and Ranson and whoever else too much space, and they were also chasing the puck. They were puck watching. They were doing everything fundamentally wrong defensively, and they let too many grade A opportunities in on Hellebuck. And eventually they're going to go in. Hellebuck is not, he's human too, okay? He's not going to always be able to save the defense ass. And I haven't watched many Winnipeg Jets games, so if there are anybody that are Jets fans or who that watch a lot of Winnipeg Jets games, let me know if the defense has been helping Hellebuck out this year too, or if Hellebuck has been so fucking good that he's been, saving
I
their
mean, I
ass.
think anytime you have a goalie playing like Connor Hellebuck, it's going to make the defense look a little bit better. I mean, the playoffs are different, especially when you're a 7-game series against a really good team who has a really good coach who's going to make really good adjustments against you on a night-to-night basis. I mean, thankfully, they're not going to have to play Colorado in the first round. Well, they shouldn't have to play Colorado in the first round unless they choke away this division lead. But I think Colorado would be probably the worst first-round matchup they could find.
I mean, you're not wrong. You're really not wrong. And Winnipeg needs this first spot in the Central Division because if let's say Dallas steals this shit away, I mean, they've won 6 straight games, by the way, Dallas has. Let's say Dallas steals it from Winnipeg. Now Winnipeg has to face Colorado in the first round for the second straight year. After you already choked a massive division lead, which everybody thought you had locked up a month and a half ago. Not even a month ago.
Yeah.
Like, that's a bad look. And then if you get bounced in the first round by Colorado, worst case possible scenario if you're Winnipeg. Now, if Winnipeg can cling on to this first spot, you'll get most likely a Minnesota team, which
Yeah.
I'd much rather face than Colorado or even St. Louis. St. Louis has
Oh
vibes
yeah,
of
they don't want
2019
want to play
Blues.
they don't want to play the Blues either. I think the best first round matchup for them is Minnesota. I think they'd beat them up pretty good. St. Louis has been playing extremely well. They're on a 10-game winning streak, and I think with them winning and Calgary losing the other night, I think that might be all she wrote on the Western Conference playoff race.
I'm with you. I'm 1,000% with you. And frankly, I think a Blues Vegas playoff series actually would not be that bad. The Blues play Vegas tough. I think Vegas will come out, but the Blues play Vegas tough.
So that's going to be a fun series to watch. I mean, I'm more willing to bet that Minnesota doesn't make the playoffs than St. Louis at this
Oh,
point.
you know how crazy it'd be if Calgary goes on a little run here, Minnesota keeps losing games, and all of a sudden we see Calgary in there at 91 points, 90
I
points.
think that is what's going to happen if the Flames make the playoffs. Is they're going to take Minnesota out.
That would, you know what, that would hurt my heart a little bit. I'm not a Minnesota fan, but for those of you guys that have been listening and watching all year, I've been
This
on
year's
the Minnesota
Flyers.
bandwagon.
I mean, this is what happened with the Flyers last year. Is
The-
they were way better than anyone thought they were going to be. They were in a playoff spot all year, and then the last month of the season, they just completely fall apart and don't make the playoffs.
Oh, that would be killer. That'd be
That's what
killer.
happened with the Flyers
That
last
is,
year.
but the Wild also have a bunch more talent than the Flyers did. I'm not ruling
Yeah,
it out
but they
though. I'm
can't.
not ruling it out.
They can't seem to win without Kaprizov. So
I'm not ruling it out. Moving on to the Pacific Division, a team that we mentioned as well, the Vegas Golden Knights. The Vegas Golden Knights Achilles heel going into the playoffs is their penalty kill. It's currently towards the bottom of the league at 75%. Hasn't been great. And Vegas was another team that was really tough to find an Achilles heel because this team is
until
good.
we saw their how bad their penalty kill is, but
We were sitting there for probably a good 5-10 minutes. We're like, we don't like we're going through like everything like where is this team like bad like genuinely, and it's crazy too because coming into the season they lose 5 to 6 key players, and everybody's like they're fucked. Here's Vegas. Their downfall's happening. Don't bet against Vegas. Dude,
who thought they were fucked?
you don't. I know you don't go on Twitter. You should have seen Twitter going into the season. Everybody's like Vegas is wild card team at best. They might be third in the division. I swear to God, I want to find something for you. I wish I was kidding. People at Seattle finishing third over Vegas. I wish
interesting.
I wish I was fucking around. If I can find it, I will. But nonetheless, though, yeah, Vegas coming into the season, you know, we didn't bet against them, thankfully. I'll check on that in a second. But nonetheless, though, Vegas are going to have to pick up their penalty kill going into the playoffs. And in a very weak Western Conference bracket, in my opinion, I'm looking at it. Western Conference Finals, I think this team can get whether PK is good or not. But if let's say they get to the Western Conference Finals, they get through St. Louis, and let's say they face Edmonton in round 2. That PK in round 2, actually, when you get McDavid, Draisaitl, Bouchard, Ekholm, Nugent Hopkins, the list goes on, you cannot take penalties at all.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to be disciplined. You're going to have to win that 5-on-5 game, which Vegas is really good at. You're going to have to capitalize on the power play. And if you start taking penalties, and Edmonton is taking penalties, now the pressure's on you to be in a foot race, to be in a barn burner with Edmonton on the power play, and that's something you don't want to do. We all saw when McDavid and Draisaitl on that power play locked in for their playoff run last year. Going into the finals, they were at close to a fucking 50% clip. That is ridiculous. For 3 straight rounds, they were at a 50% clip until Florida shut them down. And then we saw what happened in game 4-6. McDavid got going. That power play was back up and running again. So that PK is a huge concern for me. But with it being Vegas, I'm hoping, if I'm a Vegas fan, that it gets cleaned up sooner or later. Because if you start taking penalty trouble, it's wraps.
Yeah, no, especially like a team like Edmonton who they're gonna load up power play 1 with McDavid and Draisaitl and Bouchard, and that might be the game breaker matchup right there if they end up playing each other in the second round.
Yeah, I mean that'd be a fun series. First off, Vegas against Edmonton.
I think it's going to happen. Yeah.
I mean, it's inevitable right now, unless St. Louis carries all this momentum into the playoffs. It's like fuck you, Vegas, for taking you out. Bang. I don't think that will happen, but I mean, crazier shit has definitely happened, especially with how St. Louis is playing. I think this team with Binnington showing up in big games and this and that has, you you never know. But yeah.
I think the playoff matchups this year are going to be really fun, mostly for the first round. I mean, the only series that I'm kind of looking forward, like looking at it, I was like, I really don't care is Carolina or New Jersey, to be honest with you. I think that one's kind of like, do I care?
I totally agree with you. I totally agree. And it sucks too because coming into the season, I had New Jersey as my cup pick. Clearly not my cup pick anymore. I
Well,
thought
Jack Hughes, yeah, that injury killed him.
that it killed their season. It killed their any hopes of even making a deep
I
playoff
mean, they've been
run.
playing pretty okay without him, but I don't know if they can go on a cup run without him.
No, you're not wrong. And Carolina, it's like they're good. Well, I mean, they have 94 points, 73 games, so I guess better than good. But I don't know if they have the goaltending to do what it takes to make a deep playoff run. But
I think the
also,
team that's going to represent the Eastern Conference in the Stanley Cup Final is coming out of the Atlantic Division.
me too. Me too. And call me crazy. I think it's either Florida or Toronto. Like, quite frankly with you.
I agree with you.
I think this is the best team. Also,
Don't be shocked if Tampa goes on a deep run.
I don't hate that either. I think Tampa is my dark horse to come out of the Eastern
They're getting
Conference.
vintage Bassey this year. Kucherov's having another MVP caliber season. He might end up winning it this year. He's been that good. Victor Hedman is having a vintage year. Jane Gensel's been amazing for them. Don't look past the Lightning.
I'm holding it so hard. Like I'm holding it back so hard. I want to go into the West and talk about our dark horse there too, but I feel like that should be saved for our playoff. Like,
Well,
do you
we
want
do a
to
little. I mean,
do a little?
we could do we could do official dark horses when like the playoffs
Okay,
start.
okay. Then
Yeah.
just briefly now, who do you have as a dark horse coming out of your West?
Coming out of the West,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if they'd be considered a dark horse, but I consider them one of the better teams in the conference. Is Colorado. I mean, because they're gonna start this, they're going to start round one on the road, and they're gonna have to go on the road for round two, barring an upset. If a wild card team beats whoever wins the Central in the first round, and they probably got to go through Dallas and Winnipeg, and that's really tough.
I'm.
And if they can, I think it would be surprising if you found out that Colorado made it through a tough series against Dallas and Winnipeg,
I'm with you,
and then probably a tough conference final, and probably against Vegas or Edmonton.
I'm with you. I would go Colorado, but I'm gonna go a different team. I can't go Vegas because they're top of their division. I don't think LA is getting past both Edmonton or Vegas. Frankly, I don't really know if they can get past Edmonton with the healthy McDavid and Draisaitl. So, if there's one team out of the West that won't be coming out of
I know
Central,
what you're gonna say. I
St.
know what you're gonna
Louis,
say.
St. Louis,
Yeah.
St. Louis.
I mean,
number
they've done it before.
yeah,
They've done it before.
my number one team is Colorado, but I want to go with somebody different. And I don't think LA is coming out of the Pacific, and I don't think Edmonton, if they made it to the Cup final, you'd be like, I'm shocked because they're the defending Western Conference champs. So the only other team that I think has a reasonable shot is St. Louis. And again, Winnipeg and Dallas are not dark horses. They are the favorites to come out of the West.
Yeah, like I said, I think the only reason Colorado is considered a dark horse is because they'd have to play Winnipeg and Dallas.
Correct. If they were in the Pacific Division, I don't know if they would be considered a dark horse, especially if they ended up somehow stealing the division of Vegas.
I think it would still be tough just because of Vegas and Edmonton.
Yeah, that's true. I think they're better than Edmonton, but again, yeah, like you said, Vegas.
I'm never going to count out a team that has Connor McDavid only on Draisaitl.
You're not wrong. Don't hate that at all. That's going to end it for today's episode. If you guys enjoy all of our content, all of our socials are down below, as well as the subscribe button. If you guys are listening on Spotify and Apple, head over to YouTube for more exclusive content, and we'll see you guys in our next episode.